Hello, my name is Cynthia Campbell, and I'm the author of this session on Confess and Confession. I retired last August of 2020 after 9 years as pastor of the Highland Presbyterian Church in Louisville, Kentucky. And prior to that, served for 16 years as president of McCormick Theological Seminary in Chicago. I've been deeply privileged to have a career that's gone back and forth between theological education and congregational ministry. Underlying both of those careers has been my deep passion for exploring Scripture and finding ways to relate the Bible to our everyday living to make these wonderful texts come alive. I'm excited about this curriculum and the ways in which it allows us to explore that together. We begin with the practice of confession, saying where it is we have fallen short, where we've missed the mark, where things are not right with us as individuals, as communities. The curriculum suggests that the first step is to see the sin, but that implies an interesting question. How do we know what sin is? How do you know what it is that you need to confess? Now, it's easy to think of sin as breaking the rules, as doing specific things that go against the principles or the rules that God has set out for us. But fundamentally, I want to suggest that sin is a matter of breaking a relationship. God made us for relationship with ourselves, with one another, and fundamentally with God. This is how we're created. This is how we are made. Our sin is what breaks that relationship apart. It strains it and stresses it. It estranges it so that we are not in right relationship any longer. The Bible's view is that we are created for relationship, and thus the two great commandments are to love God with our whole being and to love our neighbors as we love ourselves, to love ourselves as well. When we fail to do that, we sin. Martin Luther suggested another way of thinking about sin. He said it is to be curved in on ourselves rather than opened out to others and to God. So the curriculum authors suggest that the first step in confession is to see the sin. And of course, they're right. We have to name the problem and name it specifically rather than just in general, as I have just done. But you see, here I think is the problem. We often don't see the sin. We can't see the sin. We can't see what's wrong in our lives individually or collectively. We all too easily see the splinter in our neighbor's eye rather than the log in our own. Now, this is what I think makes the story of David and Nathan so very interesting. David has committed a number of serious wrongs. He has violated not only God's commands, but he has violated fundamental relationships, not only with Bathsheba and Uriah, but his whole community. But Nathan goes into David recognizing the magnitude of this set of problems. And he doesn't say to David, look what you've done, because he knows that David won't see. He will become defensive. And so Nathan tells a story. And in that story of a man who had many sheep, but went and stole his neighbor's, David rightly sees the sin. But he doesn't see that it applies to him until Nathan says, you are the man. How do we come to see the sin? That's a really interesting question. And then how do we name it in light of what God has given us in scriptures describing the path of life?